Okay, so welcome everyone. We have a few new faces here. So welcome. My name is Anita Thompson of Art Venture Workshops. And I'm very happy to be sponsored this evening by the Free Library of New Hope and Solebury. As we paint this Snowcat painting. So just to go over again really fast, in the chat, I'm just going to recopy the supplies in case you need those. This is acrylic paint. I'm using a smaller canvas, 8 by 10, because we do have some detail to get into with the trees. And I think it's kind of fun actually. So I hope you all agree. So we're going to get started with pencil first, and then we'll get into the paint. It's a pretty simple drawing. Again, most of it is in doing the paint situation. So I'm going to move my cat over a little bit here. And so basically, let me move my camera one more time. There we go. So you can see all of it. So basically, we're going to start at the bottom of our canvas, and we're going to start with the bottom portion. So basically, the snow. So if we go to the left bottom corner of our canvas here, we're going to draw sort of a bumpy line, and then basically it's going to go like this. We're going to draw the bumpy line, and then we're going to draw a line that kind of dips inward so that we can fit our snowcat on there. And then we draw some more bumpy lines for the background so that our trees can sit. Okay, so join me at the bottom of our canvas on the left side. We're going to go up probably about 3.5 inches maybe. And we're going to make those kind of bumps. And like I mentioned, we're going to kind of go downward, curving downward to make our snowcat, and then right across, and we're going to make some bumps for the snow. Okay. Just playing with the light here. I think that's good. All right. So now, once we have that done, we're actually going to make our snowcat. So we're going to make from the bottom. He's kind of leaning a little bit. So we make his body first. And I may have to make him a little bit wider down here. You want it to be nice and round. So I'm going to make him just a little bit wider by shortening the sides here and making that dip a little wider like so. And then making the curve of the half circle stick out a bit more. Because you want him to be kind of full because he is a snowcat. There we go. Like so. And then we're going to make a curved line for the scarf and the round circle of his head. I'll just make sure everybody's getting caught up. So good to see everybody tonight. I have snow on the brain. I want it to snow so much. And I know not many of us like snow, but I can't help it. I'm a December birthday, so all of I enjoy the snow. I'm one of those weird people that enjoys the snow and the cold weather, not freezing weather, just a little cold. Okay. So next, we make the top of our snowcat complete with ears, like so. So we're kind of going around, but then also making sure we make pointed triangles for his ears. Let's see. I feel like mine's a little lopsided. Yeah, he's a little lopsided. So fix that. And once you have that done, you can start to add the scarf, which is going to start off this way. Oh, that's right, Ani. Yeah, I thought you were in Canada. Oh my goodness. I have to admit, I'm a little jealous. I we haven't gotten much snow yet. We've gotten nothing that has stuck. So I just want, and as long as I don't have to go anywhere in it, I'm good with that too. Although I don't mind driving in the snow. But I understand. I definitely understand why people don't like it. You have to scrape it off your car. It's, all the things, all the things. So if I wish for snow, Ani, I will make sure that it's just, my wish is just here in Pennsylvania. Oh, you've had none. Ah, you're happy. I love it. I'm sure many people feel the same way as you do. So continuing with our scarf here, we want to make sure that we make that folded over part like so. So basically, it's kind of a leaning, right? Sort of like a leaning line here, two lines or section of the scarf, little squared off, and then underneath we have the scarf going in an opposite direction underneath. And then we can complete around the neck. So it will look something like this. And then just fix any lines that you need to fix right now. Because our next step is really just drawing the eyes, sort of the button eyes. Right. So I like to kind of just draw them as circles. And then as we go for the nose, it's more oval. Got kind of a cute button nose, if I do say so myself. And I'm going to go a little closer here because on Zoom, it looks to me like it's difficult to kind of see. And yeah, I have to make mine a little more wider here because he still looks like he's leaning. There we go. Okay. That was what I needed. Kind of make them a little wider. Like so. All right. And now finally, our twig arms, which you want to make sure this one actually kind of have it coming out along the edge. And I kind of draw like stick hands first, and then I make it three-dimensional. I'm going to make this a little bit darker for you on Zoom. So like that. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. But it's kind of sticking out a little bit further in front of us. like so. And here's his 3 fingers. There's one, and there's another. Oops. Let me fix that one, make it a little longer. There we go. And then you're probably wondering for the trees, basically, what we're just, oh, actually, we forgot the whiskers. Sorry, the whiskers. How could I forget the whiskers? So they're kind of log shaped. And the one usually on the bottom is a little bit shorter because of the angle that it's at. So kind of like this. Let me make that a little darker. And then basically our trees are just going to be triangles. And we're going to do the magic with the painting. So in the background, you want 2 triangles, like so. Let me fix my camera angle again, and we are ready to paint. And basically, we're going to get into the background first. So basically, our background is going to be a combination of blue mixed with white to make a lighter blue, some red and white to make sort of a pinkish color. And then as it starts drying, we're also going to make these wispy, kind of wispy strokes as our brush is drying. So, but first we want to cover the background with blue mixed with white. So it's going to be a little bit lighter than this blue. So you want to grab your flat brush, and we're going to make another color right here. And depending on how dark you want it, I kind of set it at a sort of like a lighter royal blue. So kind of like that. So you can see that it's a step or 2 lighter than the royal blue. And you want to make sure that you mix quite a bit of it, because we're also going to be using some of that for the trees later on, and obviously for the snow. We will be using this color quite a bit. So let me put my Snowcat up here. Or actually, let's see. Let me move this. There we go. Okay. And so we're basically going to be covering our background first with that blue. Now you can also take your smaller, thinner brush as you get closer to your Snowcat, and obviously his hands. You can go around them and trace around them with the smaller brush. Sometimes I usually, instruct you to start off that way, but I guess I was feeling a little bit like a rebel tonight. So starting first with the background, and then as you get closer to the detail parts, you can start to outline those. But this is our first layer of color. And so I'm going to just put that aside and get into my smaller brush here, because I'm getting to the point where I have to start tracing around my Snowcat and whiskers and all that good stuff. So my idea of this came from my niece who um, thought it would be really neat to make a snowcat instead of a snowman when she was little. I mean, she's 12 now, but years ago, she made a snowcat. And I came across the picture. I do these programs like sometimes 6 months in advance, sometimes 3 months in advance, sometimes a year. And I had this one. I actually was supposed to release this one last year, and I didn't get to it. So I included it this year, but it had been on my mind. So I created it because I still have the picture of her trying to make a snowcat. But the funny thing is that one of the ears was completely crooked and it looked really cute. I should find the picture. But anyway, that was the inspiration for this one. I thought it was really unique of her instead to make a snowcat instead of a snowman when she was little. It was just one year she did it. So, so you want to make sure to cover the whole background at this point, even up against the trees, because later on, like I mentioned, we'll go back and those are the most detailed parts of this painting. And I think, honestly, the most fun. Um, so, I mean, the other parts are fun too, but I think painting trees is really fun. Okay. So for now, your background should look pretty vibrant. Um, the other thing you want to do while you have this blue is to go into the bottom portion of your painting. And you can see that I am outlining underneath the snowcat and then also for now, kind of the border between the snow and the trees. And then I'm going to rinse that brush for now. And we're going to paint the bottom part first while the background blue is just drying just a little bit. So what you want to do is grab your flat brush when you are available to do so. And you're going to mix one more color, which is going to be mostly white with a tinge of blue. So it should kind of be like a very baby blue, as you can kind of see here. And basically, you're going to paint that on the bottom, leaving some of that royal blue right underneath your snowcat as um, a shadow. And we're going to lighten this color up by adding white to it in parts. As you can see, it's a little bit lighter here on the left side. So we're going to be adding white to it. But first, we just kind of want to get this overall sort of baby blue color by using our bigger brush. And you can actually leave this color on your brush because we're going to go back up into the sky using this brush. But when you are finished with adding those colors down into the bottom, which again was taking the blue and mixing it with the white, or it's actually more the white mixing with a bit of blue so that it's a very pale blue, like baby blue. And you're going to, if you haven't already, you're going to coat the bottom of it. And then there's some darkness right underneath our snowcat. And when you have completed that, you're going to take your small brush and load that up with white. And you're going to start making some chunky snow off to the left here. And by that, I mean taking the brush, the smaller brush, and starting to kind of literally paint in clumps, leaving the light blue as the darker parts of the snow. So you're kind of like repainting this part, but you're leaving the light blue as the darker parts. So I'm really lightening up with the snow here by adding white on top of it. But what we want is we want that blue to sort of kind of shine through. And you can make bumps. So if you kind of look back here at the bottom, you're kind of trying to recreate, you know, sort of bumpy areas, some areas that are a little bit whiter, and then some areas that are still like a light blue, but a little bit of white there. And then we've got some white right up against the bumps, you know, in the back where the trees are. So doing a combination of all of those things. And you can have fun with this part. You know, this is the snowy part. And then you're even going to go back and add a little more darker blue in spots so that it kind of blends. Also, remember, if your paint is getting too thick and you want to spread it a little more, you can dip your brush in water and then go to your next color. So now I'm just adding in the snowy kind of curvy parts here. A little bit more white here in the bottom right corner. And then going back and just adding some more, even a combination of like a little more of the light blue, but you can even mix another blue, sort of like a medium light blue. That's in here also. So what I did was I just took a little more of the blue and mixed it with the white, and I kind of got another blue for some of the shadows on the snow. And you can do those, kind of deposit those in like little spots. Like here I am on the left, kind of making some shadowing here by just dotting my brush. and then smoothing it out. And then I'm going to add a little more darker blue on this side because there's more of a shadow here. And you kind of want to take that shadow and maybe make some lines in the snow going to the left. Just a little bit. Make some more clumps here. So this is where you can really have some fun with it. Add a little more white here. I'm going to add another bump right over here. Okay. And when you are satisfied with that, you can now make sure to rinse out that brush, and you're going to switch back to the bigger brush because we're going to get into the sky again. So basically, this is where you're going to do a combination of the color that we just did. So meaning the very light baby blue. If you mixed the next blue, which would be just adding a little more blue to the baby blue, and then also the original blue. And basically, so I'm going to get into, I have to wet my brush a little bit. My paints dry out so fast in this room. It's very dry in here. So basically, you're going to be making strokes that are kind of going back and forth. And you see how my strokes are a little bit dry because my brush is a little dry, and that's kind of what you want. If it's too dry and you're not liking it, you can add more of the paint. But basically, you want to make this kind of snowy background. And so that's our next layer. And depending on how it's looking, you may have to go back, add in a little more blue, meaning the royal blue. And so basically, you're just going all around in the background. Remember to get near the trees. They are a little bit lighter on either side. We're also going to be mixing in a little bit of gray as well. But this is our first kind of layer. And I have it a little bit lighter here on the right side of the tree, around the tree. Okay, and then if you keep that on your brush, that color, but you add a little bit of black, just a little bit, you're going to get kind of this smoky bluish gray. And then you want to add that as another layer on top. Now you don't have to add it everywhere, but I like to kind of add it above the cat, to the left and the right, but not so much. I don't want it to overpower, if that makes sense. So you're adding it, but you want to still make sure that your blue and that kind of white you just put down is still showing. Now we can always add this again as another layer, but you also want to go near the trees with this color. I need to add a little more blue here. I feel like my gray is getting a little too gray. So you just want a little bit of a smokiness. And when you've achieved that, you then want to rinse your brush and you're going to mix some white and red. More white than red because you're making pink. And you're still doing it with the bigger brush. So now I'm going to just add a little bit of red at the edge of my white color here. And there's another layer. Now you want your brush to you want the paint to start to dry a little bit on the brush. If it isn't, you may start getting what looks like a mess. And so you want to let your paint dry in that case. Like I mentioned, my room is very dry and my paint dries quickly. So you can see that it's making texture on the canvas. I'm just going to show this up close. So it should kind of be where it's textured, right? And you get that from the brush, the paint drying on the brush. And then you can start to kind of go around with the brush and parts of the paint will come off kind of in a swirl and like kind of a coating on top of the blue. And then I like to add just a tiny bit of white with mixed a little bit with that baby blue again. So I'm just trying to get that swirl kind of motion with these colors. So I may, and you may have to add in a little more of the pink again. This is also where you can add some kind of lavender. So making your purple a little lighter. That's what this color is. So what I did with that is, as I was loading my brush with a little bit of the baby blue, I then went in with the red and I didn't wash my brush and I combined them with the white. And that's the color you see here. So again, kind of took a little bit of the blue, a little bit of red, but more white to kind of get sort of that lavender color. And now I'm just swirling it on top of my dried background to kind of get that swirling, texture. And again, if it's just swirling and looking like mud, let it dry a bit. and then restart. Parts of mine are drying near the trees, so I'm now going to go back and I want to recreate kind of that light sort of snowy appearance. And we're also going to be adding snowdrops on top of all this as well. Let's see, I'm going to add in, and then sometimes I go back and I just add in a little bit more blue to areas because it's gotten a little too crazy. So now I just went in with my royal blue, just kind of touching up. One of the other areas that we will be adding the royal blue to will be underneath the Christmas trees or trees. They don't have to be Christmas trees. They're trees. All right, so I'm just making some more, adding a little more blue here. Kind of around the snowcat. And one more time with just a little bit more of some purpley red. And lightening up near the trees. Oops. Let's see. And if you are satisfied with that, you can rinse your brush and start to use your other brush for the snow that's happening. But make sure you rinse it really well. And I'm going to dip the tip in and start to make snowflakes. Well, you can make snow, meaning dots, but you can also make kind of starry snowflakes. But just take your time with this. I tend to either use the very tip of my brush or I turn my paintbrush over and you can use the back of your paintbrush, the other side, for the dots. So you can do that too. I've had success with both, but for this painting, I just kind of made very barely touching dots of snow. And what you can do is if you load your brush just a little bit, you can make tiny ones. You can make tiny ones if you kind of hover over the painting and barely touch it. And then if you press down a little harder, you can make bigger ones. And just have fun with this part because it's fun. Looks very festive. And when you're finished with that part, we're going to start to get into our snowcat. Actually, I think we'll do the trees first. Yeah. We're going to start with the first layer of the trees. So these trees have quite a bit of layers. We start off with black. And we start off, depending on how thick your brush is and also just your level of comfort, you can go between using your flat brush and and also your round brush, because I'm just going to show these trees again. So what we do is we start to lay in black, and we take the side of our brush and we start to lay in little sections of color. So if you look at where the black is, my paintbrush is tracing it. It's also along the bottom. We're going to start off with the one on the left like that. So again, you may use both brushes going back and forth. I know I definitely did, especially for this part. I used my smaller brush, my round brush. So let me just fix my camera so you can see that tree. So we're going to start with a bit of black. So again, we're acting as if these leaves or tree, basically, we're following the shape, staying sort of within the triangular shape, but at the same time, our branches and our trees, or actually the leafy parts, and even the inside. This is the part we're doing right now. We're doing kind of the inside of the tree, is the black part. So it kind of looks like a little strange. And we may have to even go back and add some more darker parts, but for now, we kind of want to guesstimate where the dark areas would be. And we're going to continue that almost to the bottom of the tree, but we're going to be adding the royal blue at the bottom. But there is a significant amount of black kind of at the bottom of the tree, but then we're going to mix that a bit with our blue. So basically what we're doing right now is we're kind of doing some shadowing parts of the tree. And we're going to hop over to the one on the right, and we're going to do the same thing. So let me lift up my camera here. So again, I'm doing this right now with my smaller brush. I tend to go back and forth between my flat brush and my round brush. I first start to draw in these shapes with my smaller brush because I have more control. And then when I go for more of the leaves, sometimes, especially with the blue, I add a little bit with this brush, but I have most of the control, more control with the thinner brush, because you can make shapes, necessary shapes that we need for making all the darks and building up the color, and also kind of recreating some shapes that would sort of look like, snowy leaves, snowy parts of the tree hanging down. And it's okay if your shapes don't look exactly like mine, but what you're aiming for is these are the shadow parts between the basically between the branches. So they kind of make triangular sections. So that's what we're doing right now, is we're using that black for that. And when you're ready, I put that aside, meaning that brush, And around the black, I start to paint the royal blue. And I've switched brushes, and I'm starting to extend the shapes on either side. So again, I'm using the flat or this part of the brush, right? And I'm kind of using it to fill up my second layer around the parts that we just added with black. So we're now making kind of the middle color of the tree. And from this color, we're then going to make some lighter blues that are happening around the tree by adding white. Also at this point, you want to go to the bottom where the base of the tree is and add blue. Now it's okay if you still have the white of the canvas showing, because like I mentioned, we're going to go back and basically fill in those areas with differing shades of lighter blue and then white, for the snow, and then even a little bit of some light gray. So I'm now really thinking about the way the tree is sticking out and the way, those, the snowy leaves are sticking out. And right now it's okay that I'm getting some on my Snowcat here, because the Snowcat is going to be the last part that we paint. Remembering again, when you get to the bottom here of the tree on this side, you want to paint that royal blue up against the snow. So remember, you can make some, parts of the tree along the edge of each side kind of stick up a little bit for a branch. We'll be playing with the color a little more. And then I even like to go into the black a little bit on the bottom and just paint and add a little bit of this blue that is already on the brush, so that that black is not so black. There's some blue in it. So I'm just going to kind of show this up close. So what I did was I just started adding a little bit of blue on this side of the black. And I did the same over here, so that you've got some really dark at the bottom, but then you've got this kind of blue and black combination happening. I even like to go back and kind of make some of the snow along the edge of the tree a little bit more clumpy. We'll have time to kind of, refix any spots that we want. But at this point, you can rinse your bigger brush and start to use your smaller brush for a combination of colors. So now we want to mix in our blue again, but we're going to add a little bit of white for a lighter blue. And so now we're going to start adding some other kind of spots of this color on top of the layers that we already have. And I'm going to go really close in so that you can really see what I'm doing here. So here is my other blue. It's sort of, I actually got some black in there, so it made it a little bit more of a gray. But I'm okay with that. And then I'm going to start to lighten it up with white. And I'm just going to add some lighter parts because now we want to think about the snow that is going to be happening on top of all the colors we just did. So only adding a few pieces, a few painted pieces of that color. That again was sort of the blue mixed with a little bit of black and white. So it's kind of a grayish. And I'm now thinking about the clumping of the snow and what that would look like. And it's kind of in pieces, like painted pieces. And then while you have that on your brush, you want to start adding in some white as well. But I don't like to do the white real white, only a few pieces. If not, to me, it kind of looks superficial. And let your blue kind of mix in a bit. So now adding the highlights and the parts of the snow. So you want all those kind of combinations of like light blue, sort of a grayish. I'm going to go back in and add a bit more grayish. But now we're adding basically the snow, the snowy parts. And remember to kind of, make some extended snowy parts on your tree. And this is where, again, you might have to go back and maybe add some more black if you want in certain sections. And here again, if it's too wet, and your colors are starting to run together, you want to let them dry. But we're now just filling in our trees. And I may want to add a little more black, a little more gray to some of mine. Oops, that's a little too dark. Kind of fun to experiment with it. Okay. And now I'm going to go back and even add some more royal blue because my blue game is not as strong as the other one. I'm kind of want to go back in between. The other thing you can do with the blue that's kind of neat is you can kind of make some of the branches a little bit more shaped if you want. Like I've got some white spaces still of the canvas. So now I'm just trying to figure out how to fill those, and you might be facing the same thing. So I'm adding a little more dark to this tree by just adding a bit of black to my blue. But have fun with this part as we finish up each of our trees. And they're all going to look different. They're all going to look really interesting. And so this is where, you want to decide um, if you're liking your tree the way it is or it needs more combination of colors. I'm going to make mine a little darker here at the bottom. And go back to my basic blue just to add a little more. Kind of feel like you can't go wrong with, a bunch of blues. But you do want to make sure to get in the white for the snow and kind of whitish blue even. Oops. And to me, it looks best kind of, parts of it caked on, not the whole thing. Like working on each section and dotting it along just like snow. Kind of looks like frosting a little bit, I think. Okay, and now just finishing up the tree on the left here. And as your colors are drying, you can get some interesting combinations of blue as well. That help with the way your tree looks. Okay. I feel like the tree can be a bit addictive. It's like, at one point, you kind of have to make a decision to stop adding because if not, all of a sudden it doesn't look like a tree anymore. You also want to make sure that near your snowcat, that the tree is up against it and anything that needs to be painted near it. You want to finish that up right now too. As we head into kind of our final phases for this painting, which is our snowcat. So we start off once again with our bigger brush. And we're going to start with our baby blue again. And starting off on the left side, it is the darker side of our snowcat. But we're going to start bringing that kind of shadow on the left side and also on the right side along the edge. It is a bit in the face and everything too, but for now, we're going to work with the bottom part of the Snowcat, and then you're going to start adding white. He's kind of whitest in the middle. And you're really blending the white with the blue, but making sure that the blue is still showing a bit on the left side and the right side. And the way that we accomplish this is I like to kind of blend with the big brush first so that you kind of get an even lighter baby blue, kind of how we were doing before. Just be careful as you're getting towards your trees there, since they're nice and they're nicely painted. And you can start getting into the face too. But I then start to switch to my finer brush. So when you have that painted a very, very light baby blue, you can clean your big brush and get into your round brush and start to add chunks of white in sections and smooth them out to blend them in your Snowcat. So here I'm adding white, kind of white bits of it. And you want them to kind of look translucent too. So you can even add a little bit of white on top of your blue, meaning kind of that darker light blue that you have toward the left. And then when you get down to the bottom of him, you kind of want to make that more white than blue as it's hitting into the snow. So you should still have that kind of shadowing of blue around the bottom of him in the snow. And again, I like to kind of take this small brush and do chunks of white to make it look like snow as it goes up towards his scarf here. And as you're working towards the right side of his body, you want that to get a little more white as well. So you just paint that white right on top. Again, it's nice for the baby blue to be shining through a bit because it looks like ice, like icy snow. And then you can go back to certain parts and paint some more white to make it brighter on top of the light blue. So you've got some color combination happening here. And then also you want to add that white into the face, but also going around still at the bottom of the body here, going around the arm. And definitely making the side closer to your tree on the right here and to the left, making sure to make those lines against the tree, or I should say, your snowcat against the tree here. And then go up into his face. And his face, same thing, combination. Don't forget the ears. You want to make those white at first. And then we're going to paint blue triangles in the center of those. I go around his eyes and top of his head here. Okay. Going around the second eye and also making sure to work around his whiskers here. He's surprisingly detailed. It's a surprisingly detailed painting. But hopefully it's a relaxing one. Like the detail is relaxing and not so um, difficult, hopefully. Okay. And the next part you want to do are the ears while they're still kind of wet, so that you can take that light blue and paint in inside the ears. And then I like to kind of take a combination of the blue, excuse me, the light blue and the black, so that there's a little bit of gray. And I kind of outline on the outside of the light blue inside his ears. And then this is where you can add a little bit of some color on him, kind of like around his eyes, around his nose a little bit. So this is that sort of grayish blue. And I'm still going to add some more white on top of it, but it kind of gives it a little more of a color other than just the white, because with snow, it has blues and grays in it in the shadows. And then when the sun hits it, it could even be pinks and purples, yellow. Okay. And you want to kind of let that dry a little bit and then get into the scarf, which is white and red stripes. So it's mostly red. And then we have thin white stripes. So when you are ready for that part, you're going to rinse your small brush very well. And you're going to get into your red. You're going to start making thick red stripes. And then in between is going to be white. It's also a good idea to kind of outline your scarf in red. Now you can choose a different color if you want. You can make it purple if you want. But I thought red was nice. It definitely stands out from all the blue. This part definitely takes some patience. And again, just take your time making thick red stripes. And really thin white stripes. He's looking pretty warm. His little red scarf. Then obviously, you would add white to in the middle. I like to wait till my red dries a bit. And this is where we can then start to get into our brown to now use for basically the last parts of our painting, which first we add brown to his little stick arms, and then we add black underneath as a darkening part of it. But first we paint brown. Same with the eyes and his whiskers and nose. So the whiskers, kind of think of almost like log shapes. The eyes are really tiny with the white of the canvas kind of showing. But if you're not able to do that, you can just paint it with a really small dollop of white. Same with the nose. So again, I start off with brown and then I add black. And now his other hand here. And you may have to go back and kind of add a little bit of blue from your background, or maybe not, because we are going to add the white for the snow after, and then also, well, first black underneath. All right, so there's the brown. And then you definitely want to make sure that your brush is very dry when you start to dip into your black, because if not, it makes it runny. And then you're just going to dab on that black on top of the brown. First with the eyes. I want to make his eyes a little bit smaller, so I'm going to paint around them a little bit with the white afterward. And then we move on to the nose. So basically, you want to leave a little bit of the brown showing. Like in addition to the black. I'm going to go really close so you can see. He's getting really cute. I hope yours is getting really cute too. And then for his whiskers, black on the bottom. Oh, I forgot to do these other whiskers. Huh, forgot all about those. I did the one side, the left side, but forgot to do the right side. Whoops, doing that now. So again, making them kind of log shaped. And then we'll add snow on the top of all of these. But on the underside of each finger, this is where the tedious kind of comes in. You do the black. All right. I'm gonna switch here to the right. So tiny, such precise work. But it's gonna look really good. Oops. All right, so there's the black. And then when you are ready, you want to make sure you, again, rinse out that small brush and dry it really well. And then you're going to start to get into your globby white. And you're going to dot that on top of each section that you want snow to be on top of, which would be basically his whiskers. Right, and also going to dot it on the underside of his arm and also each of his fingers there. Like so, and coming around on the other side. And then I am going to add some to his nose because why not? And a little to the right side, each of his eyes. Then I'm also going to fix a little bit on the outside of his eyes. Oops, because my brush was a little too wet. So I want his eyes to be just a little bit smaller. Oops, maybe I made that one a little bit too small. I'll have to fix it when it dries. Let's see. And then I like to go back and just make his face just a little more, just add a little more snowy whiteness. Once the bluish gray has kind of settled in his face here, I just add a little more kind of white. Make him look snowy. Okay, but I am curious to see what everybody else's looks like. So I'm going to stop the recording. Oops, where am I here?